At a private school assembly, a discipline dean publicly cuts a student's hair for a dress code breach. A math teacher steps onto the stage, covers the student with her blazer, and walks him out, risking her job. She later finds a hair donation envelope in his backpack, and quiet changes ripple through the school and nearby barbershop. Just a quick note before we begin: hit like, share this with a friend, and subscribe for more. Also, let me know in the comments which country you're watching from. It always amazes me how far these stories travel. The scissors clicked twice, a hard, clean sound in the gym. A loop of brown hair slid down, brushed the boy's shoulder, and fell to the polished floor. 100 sneakers squeaked over the bleachers. The dean held the boy by the collar with 2 fingers like he didn't want to touch him. Hair above the collar, he said into the mic. Voice too calm, the fluorescent lights hummed. The hair on the floor looked wrong, like something broken. Ms. Hart stood by the exit with a hall pass in her pocket. She had been sent to count heads, make sure everyone was at assembly. She wasn't supposed to be on the floor. She watched the boy's jaw shift and lock. She could almost feel the heat in his ears from where she stood. She shouldn't move. Her contract was still probationary. She had meetings next week with the head of school. There was an email about donor weekend, about uniformity on stage. Her rent was due. Her mother's medication reminder buzzed on her phone in her blazer. The scissors flashed again. The dean lifted another thick tail between his fingers. You were warned, he said. The mic popped. A few kids looked down at their hands. One laughed too high, then stopped. He was doing it because it was easy and public, because the rules said hair above the collar, because the boy was 15 and couldn't stop him. She stepped onto the stage. Her flats slid a little on the varnish. She walked past the front row and the line of chairs for staff. She heard someone whisper her name. The dean turned, mouth a neat line. She held out her hand. Give me the scissors, she said, quiet. It didn't echo into the mic. He blinked. This isn't your area, Mrs. Hart, he said, voice warmer now. The public voice. We're enforcing policy. There are donors here. He flicked his eyes toward the bleachers where polished shoes tapped. She kept her hand up. Give me the scissors. She could feel her own heart high against her throat. The boy stared at the floor. A strip of hair had stuck to his cheek with sweat. The dean didn't move. For a second, she saw the grey sweat mark on his collar. He looked tired. He looked like a man who had a schedule to keep and a script to finish. He moved the scissors back into his vest pocket instead and stepped closer to the mic. I'll take him, she said, and slid off her blazer. She wrapped it over the boy's shoulders like a cape. He flinched, then held it there. The fabric was warm from her body. Come on, she said to him. No, Mike. He stood up. His sneakers scraped. Some kid coughed in the bleachers. She could feel 100 eyes. Sit down, the dean said, low, off mic. His hand reached, palm open, not rough, no grip yet. Miss Hart, he added, like her name could bring her back. Not like this, she said. She put her body between his hand and the boy and turned. She felt the stage lights on her neck. The blazer slipped. The boy caught it and pulled it tight. They walked toward the side stairs. The crowd was very quiet. She felt her own ID card thump her chest with each step. He grabbed her elbow near the curtain. His fingers were careful, but firm. Up close he smelled like coffee and new carpet. We talked about consistency, he said. It's donor week. We already emailed families. He was warned twice. She turned to face him. You don't cut children, she said. Not on a stage. Her voice didn't shake. That surprised her. For the record, it's in the handbook, he said, softer. This makes problems if we make exceptions. People say we play favorites. They pull their gifts. The words were smooth, memorized. His hand fell away. For the record, she said, I'm taking him. She held the scissors in her mind even though they were in his pocket. She thought about the email she would get, the meeting, the look her department chair would make in the doorway, closed lips, sad eyes. A security guard in a jacket shifted his weight near the bleachers. Parents in sweaters pretended to look at their phones. The mic made a thin feedback whine like a mosquito. The boy's breathing was fast and shallow. He let them go. She felt that decision happen, small, internal, like a door opening down the hall. We'll talk after, he said, into the air, not to her. She took the boy to the nurse's office. In the hallway, kids pressed themselves to the lockers so they wouldn't have to make eye contact. Someone muttered, "Holy crap," in a stunned way. The boy kept the blazer tight. A tiny curl of hair clung to the cuff. He didn't wipe his eyes, but his lashes were wet. The nurse looked up and went still. She glanced at the boy's head, then at Miss Hart. No questions. She pulled a curtain and set a chair, then passed a box of tissues like it was a normal day. On the vinyl cot, he stared at the wall. Ms. Hart wet a paper towel and wiped the hair off his cheek, off the back of his neck. She moved slow. The towel was warm. His shoulders loosened a little. "Thank you," he said, voice small. "I'm not," he swallowed. "I was going to cut it after this week." She nodded. She didn't say anything about plans. She went back out the door without her blazer. A rectangle of hair lay near the bleachers like a dead bird. She picked it up with her hands and carried it back. "Do you have a bag?" she asked the nurse. The nurse handed her a clean zip bag used for crushed ice. Ms. Hart shook the hair into it. It didn't all fit. The strands caught on the plastic. She kept going. The room smelled like rubbing alcohol and lemon hand gel. Her phone vibrated. A text from her department chair. "Where are you right now?" She put the phone face down. He sat on the cot hugging his backpack. His cheeks were blotchy. His jaw worked again. She didn't ask him why he kept it long. She didn't ask him to explain himself to her. She handed him the bag like a simple thing. "Can we go to a barber?" she asked. "One who was nice." He blinked at her, surprised. Then he nodded once. She walked him to the front office. "We're stepping out," she told the receptionist. "To fix something." The receptionist followed their faces, then nodded. Ms. Hart wrote her name on the sign-out sheet and the time. Her fingers left a small, sweaty mark on the pen. At the door, the dean was waiting. His tie was slightly off now. He looked at the boy, then at her. He exhaled sharp through his nose. "You can't take students off campus without authorization," he said. Calm again. "We have forms." He looked over her shoulder at the glass wall, at the rainy parking lot, at his reflection in the door. "I'll bring him back," she said. "Take it from my lunch." She knew it wasn't how it worked. She knew she had already stepped past how it worked. She kept her hand on the door handle. He paused. "You're making this worse," he said. He sounded tired. He sounded like he wanted to go back in time and rewrite the assembly. "We're going to have to meet with HR." "Okay," she said. "We can meet." She looked at the boy. He pulled the hood up over the blazer. Rain tapped the glass. The dean stepped back without moving his feet. It was enough. They walked out into the wet. The cold air hit them both. The rain made the cut hairs on the boy's neck stand like bristles. Ms. Hart unlocked her old hatchback and pushed aside math textbooks so he could sit up front. She drove 2 blocks to a narrow barber shop with fogged windows and a red stripe on the door. She had been there once when she moved into the neighborhood, and her own hair had grown uneven, and she didn't have a salon yet. The barber looked up and read the room fast. She tipped her head toward the boy. "It went wrong," she said. The barber set the chair and draped the cape and didn't say anything else. He moved slow and careful. The electric clippers buzzed low like a quiet engine. The big mirror showed a pale neck, a steady hand, a young face starting to come back to itself. The boy watched his own eyes in the glass. Miss Hart watched his shoulders drop 1 notch. The zip bag of hair sat on the counter next to the blue combs. The barber lined the ends where the jagged cut had been, squared the back, made it clean without making it military. He wiped the last loose hairs with a soft brush. When it was done, the boy reached up and touched the back of his head. He breathed out like he had been holding it all day. The barber handed him a little bottle of aftershave gel. "It stings," he said. "Just a bit." Miss Pavel. Hart paid in cash from her wallet and added more than she could afford. She bought a knit cap from the plastic rack by the door even though the pattern was ugly. She pulled the tag with her teeth like she was in a hurry. "Here," she said to the boy, and he put it on. They walked back through the rain and the wet smell of car exhaust. In the car, he buckled himself. He held the zip bag on his lap, like he was taking care of it. In his backpack, she found a padded mailer. It was folded under a math workbook. The label book was already filled. The address read a place in a children's hospital 2 cities over. The instructions said, "Clean and dry. Tie in a ponytail. Minimum length, 8 inches." There was a printed note with a date from last month and a list of names of kids who had donated. He glanced at her, seeing it, and then looked away. His throat moved. He didn't reach for it, like he needed to explain. He just kept his hand on the zip bag. She slid the bag of hair into the mailer, smoothed the seal with her palm. She didn't say anything about sisters or mothers or anyone. The rain ticked against the roof of the car in a small, steady rhythm. Back at school, the receptionist's mouth was set when they walked in. "They're waiting," she said to Ms. Hart. eyes on the dean's office door. The boy touched the knit cap and kept going down the hall toward the nurse. He never looked back. She went into the office. 2 chairs. The dean, a woman from HR with a thin, closed laptop and a soft cardigan. The dean's tie was straight again. He didn't look at her hands. "We have to talk about process," the HR woman said, quiet. "About boundaries. About safety off campus." Her voice was careful, not sharp. She glanced at Ms. Hart's wet shoulders. Ms. Hart nodded. "Okay," she said. "We can talk." Her heartbeat had moved lower now. The sharpness from the stage was gone. What was left was a steady weight. "Effective immediately, you're on administrative leave," the dean said. He rubbed his thumb on the edge of a paper as he spoke. "We'll follow up." He didn't gloat. He didn't smirk. He looked tired, truly. She handed over her ID, lanyard, and keys. They made small clinks on the desk like coins dropping. She didn't ask about pay. She didn't ask how long. She stood up. Her blazer was still on the boy's shoulders somewhere in the hall. On the way out, she stopped in the nurse's office again. The boy sat on the cot holding a broken shoelace and trying to thread it. She knelt and fed it through the eyelet. He didn't meet her eyes. She tied the knot and tucked the ends. "You're okay," she said, and this time it wasn't a performance or a strategy. It was a description. He nodded once. He looked like a person again. She left by the side door. A student held it for her. He was a freshman she had tutored in algebra after school. He looked confused, then grateful, then embarrassed that he felt anything. "Bye, Miss Fiat, Miss Germanova." "Bye, Miss Germanova." "A heart," he said. She lifted 2 fingers in a small wave. The next week, new lines showed up in the advisory slides. "Dress code concerns," it read. "Must be handled privately. Talk to your advisor." No one said why. No one said the word stage. The gym stayed glossy and quiet during announcements. The barber taped a handwritten sign near the register. "Free corrections for kids who bring a donation kit," it said in big block letters. He put a little box of padded mailers under the mirror and a roll of clear tape next to it. He didn't tell Ms. Hart. She just saw it when she walked by one morning and stood there until a man clearing his throat reminded her the door was still open to the street. In the nurse's office drawer, a stack of knit caps appeared. Parents dropped them off with their names on sticky notes. The colors were ridiculous. Kids wore them in the rain and the sun, in the hall between classes. The caps slowly lost tags. On campus, the dean started keeping the dress code meetings in his office with the door closed. He sent fewer emails with phrases like zero tolerance. He picked up a piece of trash in the hallway once with a strange look on his face, like he had just learned it was light. "Mes people, mes des. Hart tutored at the library 2 afternoons a week now. Her leave turned into a line on her calendar. She ran into a few kids at the coffee shop, and they did their homework at a corner table in a loose pile. They didn't ask her about work. She didn't ask them about school. It was easier that way. One Wednesday, as the light dropped early, the boy came in with his hood down and the knit cap in his hands. He put the padded mailer on the table, flattened and stamped. It had a small, dark smudge from a thumbprint near the corner. He gave a tiny nod. They opened their mouth and wrote quiet for 40 minutes. On her fire escape that night, Ms. Hart pressed a hair tie into her palm. It was a thin black circle from the bottom of her purse she had used to pull his hair back while the barber worked. The city hummed below in soft grids of light. Her apartment smelled like takeout soup and shampoo. She thought about the stage and the way the room had held its breath. She thought about the dean's hand, careful and firm, and about how he had let them go, even though it made things messy. She thought about a padded envelope moving through a sorting center toward a place with beeping machines and warm blankets. She didn't know what would happen with her job yet. Her email still worked. Her name was still on the staff page, last she checked. The knit cap he had left lay drying on the radiator by her window, water beading at the edge and catching the street light in a small, steady glow.